Welcome back for the second session of our meeting today. Thank you for still being online. We are often told not to organize breaks because people may be tempted to leave. So I'm very happy to see we are still as many people online. Earlier on, we asked what color our hydrogen was. It is important to make a clear distinction between the different types of hydrogens. And at the end of the first session, we asked to whom this hydrogen belonged. So this is the key question of the second session of today. Whose energy system? And now I will ask Connie to take the floor. Connie, unfortunately, I don't see you. I hope you hear me. Oh, there you are. Perfect. Thank you so much. I would like to talk about what's happening at the European Parliament at the moment. I am at the Energy Committee and we talk about the energy system integrations. The European Commission tabled a proposal and now it's up to us to ask the important questions. So what should tomorrow's energy system look like if we want to fight climate change? What's the role of the renewables? One thing is crystal clear and very important to me. We need to bear in mind European realities. And today we need to tackle climate change. More often than not, European politics don't know how to act, but today it is obvious we need to act. It has been said and repeated over and over again. We want neutrality by 2050. There are midterm targets by 2030, but we need to create more targets, and we also need more targets on the renewables. 75 or 80% of renewables and 100% by 2050. This is the only way towards neutrality, climate neutrality. If we want climate neutrality, we need to get rid of these bridging technologies. We need to start working on cutting edge technologies, because if we now work on bridging technologies, we will create something intermediary for 30 or 40 years time, but we will lose time and money. Putting an end to coal should be a priority for all states, and we need to seize the opportunities offered by the Just Transition Fund. And if we want to put an end to coal, then we need to know what energy supply will look like tomorrow. Obviously, it will need to be based on renewables, and obviously, workers need some perspectives for the future. Energy challenges are massive and very different from one country to another. Let me give you a few examples. Solar or wind energy are decentralized, and the supplies are very different from one country to another. The energy grids need to be adapted, and we need smart management of the networks of the grids. If there are peaks of productions, or if there is underproduction, we need to find solutions, tailor-made solutions. Second example, on the biofuels and on hydrogen as well. They can be used in a limited way in some industries, and alternative fuels should become a priority. And we need to ask ourselves what techniques should be applied to what industry. Then, on emissions, it is necessary to have a holistic perspective. We need to develop a vision which is intertwined with the planning of an energy system. And this is what we mean by an integrated energy system. We need to integrate the different energy sources, the different industries. We need to bear in mind the industries, the electrification, the buildings, real estate, and we need to do all of this before we tackle digitalization. We need a holistic view and energy integration. As a consequence, we need a state policy, and that's where we are having different views, uh, views which are different from the European Commission. China and other countries have also committed themselves to climate neutrality by 2050. But the demand for resources is growing and growing. It's a bit the same as the search for gold or cobalt. We need to know where the resources are. Are the resources in Congo? We should be very careful. And we should not um, give ground to the ones who just want to become richer. We need a planned industrial policy. We need rules on the use of the limited use of resources. We need to establish priorities, a list of priority on the resources, and then on the solar energy production, Europe is just starting. And as a consequence, we need more national support and public money for this kind of energy. Furthermore, we need uh, public offers, and we need to create employment in this industry and protect these jobs. Men and women need good uh, perspectives for the future. And actually, this is missing in the text of the European Commission. The social aspect is missing in the text of the European Commission. The Commission doesn't care, apparently. It wants to convert a system, even if it costs jobs in the fossil fuel industry. We need to think about the future of our society and about the jobs. We need an energy system which is based on integration, and we need to tackle all the issues of our living together. Very important decisions need to be taken, and they will affect our livelihoods and our lives. And therefore, it is important to have some democratic control of the infrastructures and the means of productions, and not leave everything into the hands of a few powerful ones. Companies remain rich. There are benefits and dividends, and men, women, and nature end up suffering. As a consequence, we want to bet on the renewables, which are decentralized and which are produced at a small scale. In order to change the ownership of the energy, we want to work on cooperative models as well. We also want to expand the renewables step by step. It will be a long process. And the main question we need to ask ourselves is to who the energy system of the future belongs to. The Commission has long sought to privatize public services and seems to oppose itself to the interest of some citizens, but we need to act in the interest of the general public. This is our view, this is our vision, and as a consequence, public authorities need to endorse their responsibilities, and citizens need to be able to express their voices on housing, on energy, because they are consumers and they can also be producers of energy. We need a strong democratic control, and the public service must be in the hand of the state. As a group, with the left, we are in favor of having a strong strong public system of energy, which is not in the interest of the private companies. And I think there are some silver linings, and that we will be able to create jobs. We need to work with the trade unions to think about autonomy, about collective bargaining. I am a member of a cooperative which is producing energy in the region of Lausitz, and we try to promote cooperatives to promote the creation of employment and to fight the lack of energy and the energy poverty. And we need to promote cooperatives to help people join cooperatives, and we also need correct and fair wages. This is a very long struggle, and it will only be possible if there is a democratic control at all levels of decision-making processes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Coney. I tried taking notes of everything you said. Mhm. I have many questions to you, but let me give the floor to Molly straight away. Molly, you have the floor.
I will speak in English. Give me a signal if there's any problem with the interpretation. And let me echo the thanks to the interpreters who allow us to be all here to communicating across languages. It's really impressive. Yeah, so I work for Friends of the Earth Europe, and my work is on energy ownership. And yeah, we talked a lot about hydrogen earlier, and I would echo all of those who spoke about the skepticism of this sudden new silver bullet that's been discovered by the fossil fuel industry. And I think it's important to ask who owns a certain system, and also who's asking for the new hydrogen, who's pushing the new hydrogen world. I'll come on to that a little bit later. But first I want to address and be very clear what I mean about ownership. So we in Friends of the Earth see the energy transition as actually, well, first of all, it's necessary, but it's also a huge opportunity to take the energy system back from the control of the very big corporations into more local ownership. And we heard about democracy and we heard about commodities. For me, the most important thing is not actually who owns the system, whether it be the state or a cooperative, but how much say local people have, how much democratic control. And also, we don't believe that the energy system should be run for profit. We don't think that the grid, the retail market, the harvesting of energy by renewables, we think that that's something that should be run for the common good. So echoing what Jean-Claude talked about earlier, for us, energy is something that should not be a commodity, but that should be a commons that's operated by people for the good of the environment and the good of society. So we work with cooperatives quite a lot. And within the left bubble, there have been some criticisms of cooperatives. Some of them are fair, and we must be careful that a move towards cooperative ownership doesn't equal a move towards privatization. But at the moment, with the cooperatives that we work with, that's not what we see. Most of the cooperatives that are active currently in the energy system are not getting rich. Connie herself talked about the cooperative she's involved in, Lausitz. The energy system is not currently designed in a way that you can actually get rich by being part of an energy cooperative. But most of them are doing this for the greater good, and they have a mission statement that involves tackling energy poverty, tackling climate change, keeping value in the local economy is another very important aim that many cooperatives address themselves to. But actually, the most effective projects that we work with, which we call community energy, are collaborations between a local municipality and a cooperative. And there have been some attempts to divide these two parts of the movement, and I'm really resisting that. The cooperatives and the municipalities, they have separate skill sets, separate resources, and when they come together, they are the most effective at taking ownership of the energy system away from the corporations and back into the people's hands. And let me take you on a little tour across Europe, where we will visit from our little Zoom room 3 of those most interesting projects, which I think is worth highlighting right now. So let's start in Edinburgh in Scotland, where there is a project called the Edinburgh Solar Cooperative. And this is again a collaboration between the city council and a local cooperative. So the cooperative members raise the funds, and there indeed they are people who have the capacity to buy the shares. Unfortunately, we live in a world where capital and access to capital is not equally shared. But there are some people who had the capacity to spend the £100 on joining that cooperative. They worked with the local authority to put solar panels on the roofs of the local authority. So that was on the property that was owned already by the city. So schools, libraries, the swimming pool. And much of the return on this energy that's sold goes into re-education projects. So projects where they work with school children, where they bring people on tours of the building to show them how this works. They're also spending quite a lot of the money on renovating these buildings. So again, a resource that's held in common. And I think the library in Scotland has been retrofitted to a high energy efficiency standard. Next on our tour, I'm going to take us quite close to Brussels, where many of us are sitting right now. Less than an hour outside the city, there's a small municipality called Eeklo in Flanders. And here the city is working together with a Flemish cooperative called EcoPower. And they own several wind turbines together. But they're also running a huge project in the town where they aim to eliminate energy poverty for all citizens of that town. And what they do is they identify people within Eeklo who've been put on the pay-as-you-go meter. So many of you know that when you're in a really precarious situation with your electricity supplier, you often get put on these pay-as-you-go meters where you have to actually pay for the electricity before you use it. And you pay the highest kilowatt hour price that you can get on the market. So again, you are punished for being poor. So what the municipality does there is they offer anyone who's on this meter, we'll take you off this. Your electricity will be supplied by EcoPower, the cooperative provider. And we, the city, will finance your share of that cooperative. It costs €250. It's not exorbitant, but it's out of the reach indeed of some. So the city purchases the share, and people pay less on their electricity bill because they're taken off this horrible pay-as-you-go meter, and their savings then pay the city back for their share. So in this way, a collaboration between a city and a cooperative aims to end energy poverty within their own city. And third, I'm going to talk about Som Energia, which is the really big now cooperative in Spain. They were inspired by other cooperatives, and they have a really interesting ideology where they really look at energy as a commodity. And even though they are a national electricity retailer, they organize themselves in a very decentralized model. So they set up local groups. They encourage people to set up their own groups, their members, who can produce energy. They have a strong feminist focus, and they've brought a lot of attention to energy poverty as a gender issue. And they were also key in the Spanish movement against disconnections. So pushing for a ban on disconnections, so that people who are living in poverty or energy poverty don't lose access to their energy. So this all sounds really nice, doesn't it? Why is this not how everything is in the world? Why is this not how our energy system is run? I've been lobbying on behalf of community energy for 6 years in Brussels. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're up against and why we don't already have a 100% renewable decentralized system. And indeed, it's exactly the same players who were several years ago pushing the gas narrative and now have hopped onto the hydrogen bus to push hydrogen as a new bullet where they can get their big capital-intensive industry. So much of the European market is run by oligopolies. In many countries, there's a handful of energy retailers who sell you electricity. In the UK, it's the big six. In Germany, it's the big five. In France, they are in an even worse situation where EDF and Energia control a huge part of the market. Many of these retailers are grouped together in Eurelectric, which is a relatively powerful lobby organization within Brussels. EDF in France, I will pick on because the French model is one of the most centralized most difficult for energy cooperatives to enter. Basically, the subsidiaries of EDF, Enedis and RTE, have complete control of the transmission and distribution systems. So this is a political control. They're very close to the French state, being a former state-owned company. And also physically, they have a huge amount of power over the energy system. So they exclusively operate most of the country's transmission and distribution. And this has made it very difficult for community energy projects to get onto the grid and enter the market in France. But there is a quiet revolution going on. There are many amazing activists struggling to take ownership of the energy system across Europe. And many of them worked with us to push for better rights for communities within the Renewable Energy Directive. And there Cornelia was also of great help to us within the clean energy package. And we actually managed to win some quite good rights. So communities and municipalities now have a right to be involved in the energy markets, and member states must grant them those rights. We need to see how that will play out when it becomes transposed, when it gets put into national law. And some member states are already dragging their feet on that. Special star there for Germany. But it's also going to be used by us and legal experts to try to break up this oligopoly and these monopolies. So Client Earth is already taking a court case in France against EDF to demand that they properly support communities and municipal energy ownership projects, using particularly these parts of the clean energy package that we won in 2019. I'll leave it there. I think I've used up most of my time. Have some more things to say, so I look forward to participating in the discussion and debate.
Tausend Dank, Molly. Vielen Dank für die wirklich
Thank
sehr
you very much, Molly.
die ich größtenteils nicht kannte.
And
Ja,
thank you for these 3 examples you mentioned I didn't really know. So now, dear participants, if you wish to take the floor, go ahead, or simply write your questions in the chat if you are a tiny bit shy. If you have comments, it's now. I don't see any comment at the moment, so I may actually have a question to kickstart the debate. Today, we are tackling the question of hydrogen, and Connie just mentioned the fact that we needed to integrate the different elements, and Manuel also mentioned this earlier. We need to integrate housing, transportation, and energy, and Molly just mentioned the cooperatives in the area of energy production, and Manuel, during his introduction, said that, how shall I put it, that hydrogen was a bit like the batteries, that it was to stock energy, that it was not a source of energy in itself, that it didn't stem from nature. So I have a question here for Molly, but if Connie wants to bounce back on this, well, obviously, Connie, go ahead. But Molly, cooperatives, do they have the means necessary to produce hydrogen, or will this lead to other issues, because I am no expert on this?
A very interesting question. I would say I doubt it in the current system. I can't remember who it was who was talking about the energy intensity of hydrogen infrastructure. I'm not completely against hydrogen. I think we need to use it for the last very difficult bit of the energy transition that we will struggle to do with renewables. So steel production for sure. maybe long distance freight transport, we might need hydrogen there. But for the vast majority of things, we can handle it with a local, decentralized, renewable system. And let's be very clear, this demand to build more and more hydrogen infrastructure, it comes from those whose material interest is in a very energy intensive economy. They want us to stay on this super centralized, super energy intensive system. And they say, yeah, well, hydrogen could eventually all be green. Yeah, only if you're basically going to cover every hilltop and every rooftop everywhere with solar and wind. But they're betting that once the infrastructure is built, then we'll be locked in. So I would be very skeptical if we would see any cooperatives or even any municipalities building and owning hydrogen infrastructure in the next years.
Oh, das war eine klare Aussage. Vielen Dank.
Well,
Conny?
this was crystal clear. Thank you very much, Molly. Connie, you want to bounce back on this, don't you? Yes. So earlier we said what was important and what was less important on the application and the use of hydrogen. And here I don't see where it would be useful to use hydrogen. In Germany, we have some 900 cooperatives on energy, and when we see uh, how they have been created, for example, the cooperative of Lausitz, well, let's say that I don't think that hydrogen would be very useful there. As Molly has said, indeed, hydrogen wouldn't be useful there. And actually, I think we should think about diversity because indeed, the decentralization offers the possibility to diversify. And in the rural areas, we can use different sources of energy. I'm part of this cooperative, as I already told you. I'm not very active at the moment, but I'm following the discussions. And I can tell you that things are transparent and we are easily in touch with all the stakeholders. We are talking about the questions related to energy in my region, thanks to the cooperative. And as a consequence, rather, I think that hydrogen is not a viable model for cooperatives, not at all.
Das passiert mir als Moderator sehr selten, dass ich mitten in einem
Well, as a moderator,
ganz viel aufschreibe und wirklich
I'm taking many notes here. I'm not used to taking so many notes in an event I'm supposed to moderate, but when I hear you, Connie, and when I hear you, Molly, well, I hear that actually it is impossible to talk about hydrogen without saying that we need to reduce massively our energy consumption. Okay, good. So we are on the same line. So for me, this is brand new. It's the first time I hear such a thing, and I'm delighted to be part of this debate. And so we would be indeed in favor of solar energy, of wind energy, and as a consequence, we would be in favor of decentralization. And in order to give property to the individuals so that they can be owners of the energy. Today, we see that hydrogen is arriving, and we've heard Molly and Connie who said that it could be a danger actually because well, this would once again lead to this capitalistic system. So thank you. Thank you. Oh, this is a very good step forward. And I see that Michael is asking for the floor. So go ahead. Yes, thank you, Roland. I do share your point of view. But on hydrogen, I am a bit more optimistic. I'm an engineer, and we've talked about this over and over again. We've talked about the usefulness of a cooperative which would have its own windmills. So why couldn't we put this on the grid? I think that the same goes for hydrogen. In Germany, an institute which is not a left-wing institute said that hydrogen was a bit like the champagne for renewables. And when you say we cannot work with hydrogen, I do disagree with you. And we talked with the scientists for future, and we think that we could create a system with tubes to uh, share the energy through these pipes. So let's not dismiss hydrogen straight away. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. So, Michael, if you have any document at your disposal on this topic, you'd also talked about the working group Scientists for Europe. Well, please share this through the chat. We would be interested in having a look at this. No, I don't know what to say about the hydrogen. Jean-Claude, you asked for the floor, didn't you? Go ahead.
Yes. Earlier I mentioned the capital-intensive nature of hydrogen conversions. But that's also why I talked about having a new mode of production. We need to socialize our industries. It could be via national ownership, but above all, it has to be with worker management. It has to be a context where it's not capitalism, it's not finance that is going to make the decisions, but these are going to be democratic decisions based on needs, which sort of is looking at it the other way, right? So I have no doubt that hydrogen production is not for co-ops, but I'm quite convinced we can have a fully socialized, planned, and democratic economic system that will produce hydrogen the right way. And that for that, we need to be rid of the capitalist ownership structure. We need to replace it by usufruct. As people working in the industry will have access to those resources. They will not own them, but they will be responsible for their usage. And I think it's what we have to focus on for hydrogen, because indeed it's not suitable for decentralized applications.
Thanks, Jean-Claude. I just, Entschuldigung, weil ich Englisch gehört habe.
Oh, sorry, I just heard some English. So to all of you, I would just like to make an announcement. You can type on Google Right to Energy Coalition. Google Right to Energy Coalition. This is an amazing coalition which is also supported by Friends of the Earth Europe. It's an amazing organization which is precisely tackling what has been mentioned by Molly, and which tackles the link between poverty and energy, and which tackles the issue of ownership. I think this is a very interesting debate, and I see that Nassim is asking for the floor. So Nassim, if you want to take the floor, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Roland, and thank you all for this very interesting conversation. Yeah, my question relates to the two conversation that happened today. So we've heard from Connie and others the need for a transition, an energy transition, and the need for a just energy transition where workers would have fair and secure jobs. And we, yeah, therefore my question is, how do we use possibility of ownership through cooperatives to ensure that workers that used to work in fossil fuel industries have secure and fair jobs after the transition, and therefore this relates also to the dialectic that Jean-Claude was mentioning. Do we still have to make sure that there is some kind of planned and centralized transitions that would assure that those workers are actually like have an actual guarantee for the jobs, and that we also can plan a transition towards the decarbonized economy. I know it's a bit of a large question, but I would love to hear your views on that. Thank you.
Conny?
Conny?
Würdest du auf Nassim antworten wollen?
Ja, zum Just Transition Fonds beispielsweise.
Do you want to react to Nassim's question? Yes.
Wo es darum gehen muss,
Just a fair transition to phase out coal needs to be based on prospects for workers. It should be fair, it should be safe, and we have discussed about that in our working group.
wir nicht wirklich einen solchen Auszug hinbekommen, inklusive der notwendigen Beschäftigung.
And of course, we will not be able to phase out while guaranteeing all the jobs, because what guarantees can we give? This is the first thing. And now we have really broadened the discussion. It's not just about phasing out coal. It's quite, that's what make it so difficult. I do think at the same time that Anke could also take part to your debate. Anke comes from Brandenburg, and he maybe will be able to bounce back on my comment. I don't know if I can, but I would like to give the floor to Anke. Yes, you can, of course.
Anke, möchtest du was sagen?
Anke, are you with us? Would you like to take the floor? Yes, we can hear you. Yes, of course, I can comment. In the Brandenburg area in Germany, we have a 40 billion fund for the coal regions because we are phasing out coal. And that is true for the area along the Rhine and for the Brandenburg region. It is a financial support put at the disposal by the German federal state. That money should be put at the disposal of the big energy consumers in the industry. Because it's not only about coal. There are other industries, car industry, for example. There are even more workers in that industry than in the coal industry. It will be really difficult to address all the factors, all the different elements. We should do such a reflection in all the member states in order to accompany structural change. So I would put it in another way. This fund should not only be used in order to phase out coal. This is my take on this. And as I have the floor, I would like to put forward another comment on the democratization of those processes. Because this is a question that is following me. If we want to democratize industrial processes, so giving workers the ability to take decision on the use of the production, import, export, and so on and so forth, I'm creating an internal competition between the different workers, as it is the case with capitalists at the moment. It should be taken into account. It should not be the solution. For me, the solution should be to submit all the democratic decision to the population well-being, to the common good. So I cannot follow in that rationale of industrial process democratization up until the very end. If we had had a survey or a vote on the car industry or the coal industry of the different workers, if workers can choose freely, in my opinion, change will not be possible if it were the case. So I think we should find another approach in order to find the common good.
Danke, Conny, dass du Anke mit reingebracht hast. Vielen Dank, Anke.
Thank you, Conny, for involving Anke, and thank you, Anke, for your comments.
Aber bevor ich rede, Molly, bitte. Bin
Well, you relaunched discussion with your statements, but Molly is asking for the floor.
I think this question, do we need it to be centrally planned or can it all be carried out at the local level, is a very interesting one. And we can discuss it theoretically for fun, or really for quite a long time, especially if we were living under the kind of economy and the kind of democracy that we wanted. I have a lot of ideas about that, but they have to keep for after the revolution. And unfortunately, at the moment we live in, let's hope it's late stage capitalism. And the energy transition cannot wait. It's already underway. It's very urgent. And we have to do it now in this messy, unjust capitalist system. And we have to do the best that we can. It's a huge opportunity to make points about ownership and local control, which can then also hopefully spread to the rest of the economy. But I would say we, as a very broad movement for energy democracy, we should have a goal of a very fast transition to a completely renewable system, which is fair. We don't need to have any more detailed a shared goal than that. And then we just get on with it in our communities as much as we can.
Vielen Dank, Molly. Ich will auch
Thank
nicht
you,
warten
Molly.
auf der Revolution. Ich glaube, das würde noch ein bisschen zu doll dauern.
I'm not going to wait for the revolution and after the revolution. Stephen, you have the floor. Thank you. In the chat, we could read a very interesting contribution from Dieter. Dieter alluded to a technology that is already existing for the surplus of solar energy to convert them in hydrogen. He's saying that it is being used by experts. Maybe he could explain or maybe give us some articles, some sources in the chat to explain whether this means some possibility for the layman. Thank you.
Michael oder Dieter? Bitte, 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 bitte.
Dieter. Okay, go ahead, Dieter. I found this on the internet, on YouTube, and many people already tried this. These people are installing solar panels. They have tried this technique for their own household, and they have explained that it works on YouTube. Here, the idea is to use the surplus of energy that is not used at the moment, at a time t. With that surplus of energy, it should not be right to put it in the grid of the European Union, but it should be put on a green grid, hydrogen-based, which currently is not possible. Lobbyists are against it, of course. They are fighting hard against any idea of energy autonomy, self-supply, in fact. Hydrogen could be key there, because with electrolysis, the heat that is generated could be used again for heating networks, for example. For to heat different buildings. It's about mixed generation of energy. But currently, the laws in Germany prevent us from doing so. It is not possible under the law for different reasons, for the production of electricity as well. Companies are not really interested in those solutions because there aren't any incentives. So we should change the legislation in terms of energy supply so as to keep in mind the autonomy for the energy supply. But I'm thinking out loud. But again, I would like to give you this law proposal with my comments so that it could solve any issues. Thank you very much, Dieter. Please do not hesitate to send me this link. I'm going to read through it and share the document. I can see that under the chat, Nessim
Ich möchte nur noch mal
just shared a link to other events. Our event is slowly but surely coming to an end. And if a person here, someone in the room would like to make any comment, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, it's already black outside here in Brussels, and we've worked quite a lot already today, and we could call it a day if you don't mind. But maybe a last comment from my side. The issue of democratization. When we prepared the webinar today on hydrogen, I was not aware of the importance of this issue. Maybe I'm being a bit naive, and maybe I come always back on the same issue. But after hearing Connie and Molly earlier on, I do think that hydrogen is necessary. To what extent we should discuss and decide about that, but the incredibly high production cost and the whole chemistry behind hydrogen make decentralization a bit more difficult, and I'm minding my words. With the solar panels, we are really seeing that prices are decreasing, and we are clearly seeing that history is on our side, because soon enough, everyone will be able to have solar panels. It's not the case of hydrogen technology. So this whole issue of democratization of hydrogen is a capital issue, or rather a key issue, should I say. We were able to understand that between the lines. Molly gave us a very interesting example, and I'm interpreting her. It was the second example, Molly, you raised, of the city called Eeklo, a Flemish town. And you explained that there is a high cooperation between the cooperative and the municipality in Eeklo, in Belgium. I thought that there were public companies, the cities, and the cooperative. But linking the different elements is new for me. it's really unprecedented for me. And it is a great cause for reflection because we can strengthen cooperative. And when cooperative cannot act, maybe the state can act, but which state? Which state can support them? That is interesting. Molly and all the others taking part in the discussions today, you mentioned hydrogen and the applications for steel, for example. We cannot and we do not want to come back in the 60s or 70s with the public companies or state-owned companies. And today, we are not in a perfect democracy today. We can, of course, elect or decision makers every 4 years, but that does not mean that all society is democratic. And Anke raised the issue of democratization, and thank you very much again for doing so, because it was really timely. Do we have a competition between the different cooperative? How can we really integrate all of that in a broader plan? The risk is that it is too far away from everyone. Who would be planning? I do not have the answer to that question, but at Transform Europe, we are working on that. And we have made it, we have said it was a commons. Who is owning what, and how can we have a common decision? So this is it for my comment. I don't know whether anyone else would like to mention something. Maybe let me draw your attention on the chat because Molly gave us some insights. It is very interesting. Do you have any comments, any additional question?
Manuel
If that is not the case, Manuel, as the co-organizer today, as Connie Ernst, I would like to allow you to sum up the event we had today. Earlier on, I thanked Kevin, and Kevin told me that Manuel had to leave us, unfortunately, to take part to another virtual event. Maybe Kevin, you would like to take the floor and sum up for Manuel. Yes, thank you very much, Roland. I hope that you can hear me, all of you. So Manuel is apologizing, but we have an important discussion in France on the global security, which is a clear threat against the French democracy and public freedoms. It was even denounced by the United Nations, and there was a discussion and a manifest and a protest in front of the National Assembly in France. So Manuel had to leave for that. So I would like to thank you on behalf of us, Roland of Transform and Connie as well for organizing our event today. And Manuel thinks it was a very rich discussion today, and it was very interesting. And the topic we raised today raised many issues. Because and then it is about the involvement of workers in those processes. We could raise different issues based on that very issue of hydrogen and the place of hydrogen in the energy transition. For us, this exchange was key and timely, and we thank all of you for that. We do think that the work we have started today is only a first step, and this cooperation and coordination between the different political forces, trade union forces, associations as well should be strengthened, because the success of planning of the ecological transition cannot be done at a single state level. It requires democratic planning, coordination, as well as at the European level. So based on hydrogen, we have kick-started a very essential work that we hope we can, that hopefully we can continue at the European Parliament level with all comrades from the associations and the trade unions. Thank you very much again for all those exchanges, and we hope that we can continue doing so in the future in order to enrich all collaborations.
Vielen Dank, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Conny,
Thank you very much for your very interesting words. Connie, would you like to add something? Yes,
Tolle Sache. Es hat
I do share what has just been said. Thank you very much.
Wasserstoff. Ich denke,
I was able to learn a lot today, especially on hydrogen.
Anfänge im Parlament. Wir haben jetzt die Dossiers auf den Tisch bekommen.
What we have just heard today was essential.
Das geht
We are here at the Parliament and we are dealing with different files with the energy transition. We are having the first debates with the different shadow reporters at the European Parliament. We'll see how things evolve also. But for me, one thing is really clear. We do not have a one-size-fits-all solution and plan. Roland, let me reassure you, we do not have a single plan. There are several options also at the local level with citizens' movements, with energy cooperatives. All of that can be useful, and Manuela knows that full well. We fought for that on the energy markets so that the citizens' cooperative could be included.
Chancengleichheit. Ich will mal ein Beispiel nennen. In Mainz, das hatte ich
But it was really hard.
auch bei
And I forgot to mention that in Mainz, there was an energy cooperative
sondern
who is doing more than that.
Wirtschaft
It's not the usual energy cooperative. It is also working in farming. It is also giving transportation offer. It is also providing electric vehicles.
Territorium anbieten. Und das sind also dann
So it is clearly a multiple offer
Angebote, lokale
managed by this local cooperative in Mainz, in the area of Mainz. It is a local solution. It is a local energy carrier.
konfrontiert sind.
And we have to give a chance to those structures. It is a clear challenge for all of us, and we need to have partners. Renewable energies need to take into to involve all the partners. We know that there are opponents to windmills and to wind energy and so on and so forth, but we need to involve everyone. We need to have support as well. For example, trade unions. It is senseless to talk about a just transition without trade unions. We will not be able to move on without them. I do agree with my colleagues and the comrades.
Da gucke ich nämlich nicht auf Deutschland, sondern
At first, I think that we should focus on coal. And I'm not only thinking about Germany, I'm thinking also about Poland. And there is a lot of work to be done on this.
und natürlich auch auf europäischer Ebene mit den Gewerkschaften. Das halte ich für ganz
And at the European level, of course, we will need to agree with the different trade unions. It is key, otherwise we will not be able to move forward. And I would like to thank all of you on behalf of my office. I thank all of you who took part to this event, who organized this event. It was really great and brilliant, and it is only the start of it. I think that there will be a follow-up. I hope that we will be able to keep on collaborating in such a beautiful manner with Transform, and I would like to thank Roland especially for that. Thank you, Connie. Thank you very much.
Conny das letzte politische Wort geben. Kevin war so nett.
I wanted to give the floor to Manuel, i.e. Kevin, and Connie for a political statement, and Kevin did it
Wir eine großartige Funktion
to represent Manuel.
und ich weiß, wie viel sie arbeiten.
Because we have an incredible political group at the European Parliament working hard on different files.
Ja,
And it's not easy.
sagen, tausend Dank.
Easy working on all of that.
Abschließenden Worte. Zwischendurch
Hence my thanks.
ein bisschen vor wie
warm thanks for your closing remarks. Today was a bit like Alice in Wonderland. Like when she was facing the fox, I was puzzled and startled. It was difficult to digest all this information, and I really thank La France Insoumise and Kevin and Manuel. Thank you very much. Thanks to Connie as well, the German delegation, and you especially. I thank all of you, Molly, Jean-Claude, and at Transform Europe. We will not relent in the future. We will work together. And thank you very much, Molly. I mentioned Alice in Wonderland earlier on. So there is also a fairy tale with a hedgehog, or rather a turtle and a hare. And sometimes I'm a turtle, but I can be a hare as well. When it comes to a brilliant cooperation, we always come back to Friends of the Earth Europe. So thank you very much for your cooperation with us. And I thank you personally, wholeheartedly, for your contribution. Maybe a last word to my colleague Jean-Claude Simon. Thank you very much, comrade. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for being here today. And I would also like to thank the interpreters. Sometimes I was using German, sometimes I was using English, because they were so good that I didn't know whether it was the original version or the translation. So the interpreters, thank you as well, sir. And again, I thank all of you. Have a very good evening. Stay safe and see you soon. Stay in touch as well. Goodbye to all of you. Goodbye.
Cheers.